So, welcome back to another top 10 list, and I haven't done one in a long time, and I cannot believe I have never done one for the TurboGrafx, but just for the TurboGrafx card games in America. I have never done one for that. I'm looking forward to it. And guys, tell me down below some of your favorite card games on the TurboGrafx. Now remember, there is no official top 10 list online. It is all personal choices, and these are just my personal choices. So I thought I'd just start at number 10, and let me tell you, these choices were very difficult. There's a lot of really great games on the TurboGrafx, and also I have finished 85% of these games. I'll explain the ones that I didn't as I go along. Now at number 10, right here, a little game called Military Madness on the TurboGrafx, and I bought this in a value bin at a place called Radio Shack up here in Canada back in the early 90s. And I was like, oh my god, Military Madness, I can't believe it. This, a TurboGrafx game. And I was happy to get any TurboGrafx game back then. And I put it in, and it was my first introduction to strategy games. I had never really played strategy games. I'd seen Nobunga's Ambition on the NES, but I'd never really gotten into any of that. And this game was incredible. It took place on the moon, and you used a hexagon grid to move your forces around. And you had troopers, regular troopers that were known as Charlies. You had tanks, which were Bisons. You also had fighter jets, and you'd move them around the grid and move next to your enemy, and based on terrain percentages you would do better than your enemies, depending also on the kinds of weaponry that you were using. And I got addicted to this game. I finished every single level back in the day, and then the game really continued on for me as I fought in two-player mode against my friend Swagger, and he was a big military buff as well, and we had a lot of fun with this game. I got my money's worth and then some. Great game, Military Madness. Now at number 9, Alien Crush and Devil's Crush. These are some games that I never finished. I was terrible. I've always been so terrible at pinball. I don't know what it is. I just seem to suck at the game. But I absolutely think the game is great. I love both of these games. I love the game of pinball, but I've just been so terrible at it over the years. And what I loved about these games is that they incorporated H.R. Giger monster designs into the pinball machines itself, and really, really great stuff in the first game. And then into the second game, it's a little bit more fantasy, and you gotta appreciate these games. I remember seeing demos for these in stores back in the day, and I was like, oh my god, look at this is pinball, but it looked so animated, and it was a video game. It was kind of cool to have it at home, and these games are classics on the TurboGrafx. Now at number 8, we have Bloody Wolf. Yes, this was an action military game on the TurboGrafx, and as the Japanese would call it, they'd call it Bloody Wolf. Fantastic, a lot of fun, a lot of power-ups, get keys for different areas, and at the time, these were some stunning graphics. It's like the NES had Contra, the TurboGrafx had Bloody Wolf. It's a strange comparison, but it was a military-esque type of game, and all the reviewers loved it in the back in the day for great reason. It was a fantastic military, side view shooting game. At number 7, we get Splatterhouse, a game that everybody who owns a TurboGrafx talks about, but for good reason. It is an arcade port, a classic blood and guts type of gory fighting game, side view action fighting game. Really a lot of fun, and it was a really big deal. The reason why people talk about it a lot, it was a really huge deal on the TurboGrafx. It really showed you what the system could do. Now the arcade game is quite a lot better. The FM Towns version is unbelievable. The TurboGrafx version is probably the weakest version, but it was the only home console version in America, and that's why it was so universally loved. And also, you're just using a character who, wearing this crazy mask, like, something out of Friday the 13th, going around killing zombies and monsters and blood and guts and gore. It was a kid's dream. Number 6 is a game I'm quite nostalgic about. I'm going to mention both games, Nutopia 1 and Nutopia 2. I remember I was working a really crappy drywalling job, just cleaning up the drywall, back when I was in grade 10. And I would have a little notepad beside me, and I'd always be writing notes about games that I wanted to get on the TurboGrafx, things I was excited about in the future. I still do these things now to this day. One of the games on there was Nutopia I wrote. And because it was like a Zelda clone, a Zelda-esque game on the TurboGrafx, and at the time, way better graphics than Zelda. It really wasn't. I was so excited to play a Zelda type of game on the TurboGrafx. I mean, how could I go wrong? And I got the game, and it did not disappoint. It really is identical to Zelda. It's always dungeons that you have to go through. You finish the dungeons, you get different weapons, allows you to go into other dungeons, different power-ups, different bombs. A lot of the stuff is the same. Put a bomb on an area, blow it up, you can go into that area. It's exactly like Zelda. But you know what? Zelda did it so right. For a clone like this, it was excellent. And I highly recommend Nutopia 1 and 2. A lot of fun, and they still hold up really, really well. An easy game for this list at number 5, Legendary Axe. I think one of the greatest action platforming games on the TurboGrafx, way up there. It really is. It was one of those games that I picked up, I played all summer back in 1990, and I loved it. And why I loved it so much, the gameplay was so easy to get into, but it took a long time to master. It really did. The first few levels are very, very easy, but as you go through the game, it gets harder and harder. But it always feels that if you die, it's because you suck at the game. It's not that the game sucks or the controls were bad. The controls are really, really good. And you just start as a medieval type of character, caveman, going through different levels, side view levels, fighting spiders and bears and rats and snakes. It's bizarre stuff. But the package comes together really well. And when I just look at this game art. When I look at this, it's so classic TurboGrafx. Nothing says TurboGrafx like Legendary Axe, and I can't recommend this enough. Now for number 4, I really wanted to say R-Type. I will mention R-Type because that's a really good shooter on the TurboGrafx, but I'm going to mention Soldier Blade. Arguably one of the best shooters to come out on the TurboGrafx. It really is. It's an overhead shmup shooter style game. What sets it apart? What makes it so good? Controls beautifully. Graphics fantastic. Really, really good power-up system. They use the power-up system in Spriggan later on. It's almost the same, color cycling of you get 2 red power-ups and a green power-up, and then you get just a spray of green blasters on the screen. That's the same for Spriggan. It was the same kind of style power-up system. Really good bosses, really good enemies, really nicely animated. A pure pleasure to play. Anybody can pick up this game for the very first time and have a really good time with it. One of the best shooters, I think, on the TurboGrafx. Now, when anybody thinks of the TurboGrafx, you gotta think of the mascot. Yes, the TurboGrafx had a mascot, a self-appointed mascot, that is Bonk. And Bonks Adventure was the first game, and I'm gonna mention all the Bonk games here. They're all equally fantastic, and they all brought something new to the table, which was really, essentially, Bonk, a caveman, with a gigantic head, smashing his head into things, and him powering up in many, many different forms over the different generations of games. Now, how does the game stack up now? It's still a really fun game, and I remember looking at the kiosks, playing this game in demo form, going, wow, look at this game. Look at the characters on the screen. I remember seeing huge dinosaurs and giant characters, and I remember this is one of the reasons why I wanted a TurboGrafx. And when I finally got to play the game, I was not disappointed. It's really funny. Every major console has always had a standout ninja game that has become very memorable. The NES had Ninja Gaiden, the Genesis had Revenge of Shinobi, the Master System had Shinobi, the regular Shinobi, and on the TurboGrafx, we had Ninja Spirit. Wow, what a breakthrough game. This game just blew my mind back in the day, and it was a game that I used to brag to my friends about. You know, if anybody was like, oh, fuck the TurboGrafx, I'd be like, check out Ninja Spirit and shut the fuck up. And as soon as they saw Ninja Spirit, they're like, wow, this is really nice looking and a beautifully playing game. And it's a side view game where you play, a ninja. You can get multiple shadow ninja forms and attack using multiple shurikens and multiple weapons. It just blows your mind about the power-up possibilities. And it comes off as very simple to begin with, but gets a little bit harder as the game goes along. So the first few levels, again, you breeze through, no problem. But in the later levels, they get a little bit more challenging. But a TurboGrafx game that really stood out. A game that made you proud to be a TurboGrafx owner and to justify it to all the other kids in the neighborhood that were condemning the TurboGrafx so forcefully. Ninja Spirit was easy to make the system look amazing. Now at number 1, I almost came up with a tie. I really did. I was like, it's this game or this game. These are two of my favorites on the system for card games. And the first game, I'm just gonna put it out there, Kadosh. Kadosh is a really great, I've talked about it so many times, side view action RPG where you play as different characters. You can play 2 players. I played this game with Kim probably about a year ago. We had a really good time with it. It's a wonderful game. I have the arcade game as well, but it's not my number 1 choice. My number 1 choice for my favorite card game on the TurboGrafx is Dragon's Curse, part of the Wonder Boy series in Japan. I have to really get in depth here. Why is this my favorite TurboGrafx game? Like, of all the TurboGrafx games that are out there on card, I like the replayability in this game. I like how much time I spent with this game. It is difficult but rewarding. And what happens is you start off as a regular guy, you get turned into a dragon, and you're stuck in this one area, and you have to go through side view, and that's a great thing. You can go left, you can go right, you can down, up. It's a bit of an action RPG. The great thing about this game and what it kind of sets it apart is, I'm going to use the term like a Metroidvania. It has that kind of feel to it. It was one of the very first ones I experienced. And you would get to a certain area, you couldn't get past it, and you'd get frustrated, and then you could find a way to turn it into a different creature that would, allow you to get up an area. I remember this one area, I couldn't get over it because there was those blocks that looked like cheese, and you turned into a mouse and you were able to get over it. It was really cool. Or there'd be entire levels that I couldn't get through because there were so many enemies. I was able to turn into the hawk, and I just flew the hell over everything. I mean, the possibilities, the secrets in this game, there's so much going on in this game. And that's the thing, it's such a well-designed game. It really is. It's very difficult at times, but very, as I say, rewarding. Very well designed. I cannot say enough of the design level in this game. I think it's brilliant. And it wasn't a hard choice to come to this one. I thought of all the games that, some games are just action games, some games are just RPGs, some are just, racing games. There's so many elements going on in it. And it created for a really overall wonderful, fun experience. And I had to choose it as my number 1 favorite card game on the TurboGrafx. So, guys, tell me below what some of your favorite TurboGrafx card games are, and maybe a little explanation of why. I'd always love to hear it. I've played all the TurboGrafx games. I really do enjoy them all, but these are some of my personal favorites today. So anyways, guys, until next time.